But there are also a lot of artists working now who make quite beautiful pictures. But it's done in such a way to, say, for example, Jeff Wall's work, where you recognize that this is a stage tableau. It's not a scene that he's come across.
Yes, yes.
And that sort of understanding of the kind of conditions in which the image was made, but also in which the image is experienced, that's a very important consideration for a lot of artists now. So that would be one thing that might distinguish you know, a standard kind of street photography from some of the work in this exhibition. Having said that, I don't want to dismiss street photography because it's something I'm still really interested in, and you can think of Robert Frank as a street photographer, yes, maybe the most important photography of the 20th century.
Good morning, how's it going? I am at the Vancouver Art Gallery on the main steps on Robson Street. As you see, the sign here talks about Pacific Crossings. It's a show about Hong Kong artists here in Vancouver. But I'm here for another reason. I did a Instagram, I was invited as an Instagrammer to do a thing here at the Vancouver Art Gallery about a month or so ago. And they had no idea I was a YouTuber. And so they got me in as media. So there is a contemporary photographic art show called Pictures From Here. I think that's what it's called, Pictures From Here. And I am interested in seeing what is contemporary photographic art, because a lot of art galleries, many art galleries, don't put it in the same class as like paintings and sculptures. Except for Vancouver Art Gallery. They're actually having a show on contemporary photographic art. And there was a Vancouver movement called the Vancouver School, and there's quite a few well-known Vancouver photographers that are in this school. And so I'm gonna go in. I'm here with my buddy there, and there's a really handsome, tall, strong-looking security man here. Hello, Mr. Security Man.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm gonna go in here.
Okay.
And we're gonna just see, this is my first time doing a media event like this, and so we'll just see what happens. Looks like my B-roll man is a little bit camera shy, but that's all right, because he's Mr. B-roll. And as I come up to the desk, I will introduce to you Greer. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you.
I will move on.
No. You're part of the show. How's it going?
It's going well. We're really excited for the media preview this morning.
Thank
Bright
you.
and early.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming.
We can go back and forth. I am very happy to have been invited. I'm gonna take this camera off your face, and then we haven't even talked yet. I'm so rude. And then we'll see Greer in there, and then we'll have an interview with her maybe a little bit later, but we'll see. All right. So thanks, guys. I'm gonna cut out here. All right, I'm in the lobby area. We're waiting for the event to begin. And who do I bump into? Here is the other Henri. Hello. People call you Henry here, though, right?
Yeah.
But I like Henri.
A few people call me Henri.
Henri, those of you who don't don't know who you are, he's quite a well-known Vancouver photographer. Just look up Henri Robideau, so R-O-B. I'll put it down I'll spell it out. But we'll put it down here. We'll put it down there. But the first time I ran into Henri, he was actually taking pictures with Fred Herzog, and I was with my wife, luckily, because you guys would have just thought I was some crazy fanboy. Yeah. But my wife made me a little bit normal.
Actually, you were the alpha photographer there at that moment.
Was I really?
You were the alpha photographer.
That's not good amongst.
No, it was actually cool.
Was it really?
Yeah.
But it was fun to bump into you guys.
Yeah.
And
it was great to meet you because I like to see you on the internet. There you were,
that's
walking around on the street.
That's right. This is the a contemporary photographic art show here at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and you have some of your works here. So we will talk to you up where your work is once the tour part is done. That's why I enjoyed seeing you and Fred out still shooting. That's fantastic. You know, you guys are still out there shooting. There's no camera crews around you. You're just doing what you love. And so we will talk to you later upstairs. And I'll let you finish your coffee. I interrupted him and his coffee.
Reflects on the decisive shift away from lyrical landscape tradition that was dominating art making in Vancouver well into the 1970s. It was at this juncture that pioneering artists Ian Wallace, Jeff Wall, Rodney Graham, and Christos Dikiakos began creating a pictorially imaginative, lens-based art practice. As many of you know, the term photoconceptualism, which emerged at this moment, has become closely associated with art making in Vancouver over the last several decades. And for some audiences, this will be the first time they will see the remarkable collection of artists associated with photoconceptualism. It brings together lens-based and video works by Roy Arden, Karen Hubas, Stan Douglas, Christos Dikiakos, Greg Girard, Rodney Graham, Mike Grill, Arnie Haraldson, Fred Herzog, Barry Jones, Evan Lee, Anything Company, Marion Pender-Bancroft, Henry Robideau, Sandra Semchek and James Nicholas, Althea Thalberger, Jeff Wall, Ian Wallace, Paul Wong, and Cornelia Weingarten and Andrea Fantana. Wonderful group.
The impetus of the exhibition came out of the fact that there's a lot of really interesting and really strong photographically based work being done in Vancouver, and that's been the case for a number of decades now. Photography in Vancouver has become widely recognized. The term photoconceptualism is something that is closely linked to the recognition of Vancouver as an important center for the production of contemporary art. And so that was part of the framing at the beginning. And while a term like photoconceptualism, which is debated and disputed, is useful at times, it can also kind of efface some of the differences between the artists who have been associated with that term and artists who may be working kind of alongside of it. So that's kind of another place where the idea for the exhibition came from. It's not intended to be a history of photography in Vancouver or a history of photoconceptualism in Vancouver or anything like that. But it does, I think, represent a number of the different currents that have shaped photography and artists working with photography over the last 40 or 50 odd years. There are also some new works that have never been shown anywhere before, and some work that hasn't been shown for 25 or 30 years. So hopefully there'll be, although a lot of the names of the artists in the exhibition will be familiar to her, a lot of the work will be new and hopefully very interesting. I should have added probably as a preface to the whole exhibition is that in the 1970s, when Greg was making these, and when Ian first started making some of his work, photography was not that, it had a subordinate status compared to other media such as painting or sculpture. So we've become very used to seeing photography in art museums and places like this. When a lot of these artists started working, that wasn't the case. In Greg's case, it's unusual that he was working with color, although he wasn't the only person doing that at the time. But it was somewhat unusual to work with color. But a lot of what drew him to make these images was focusing on the different colors and kinds of light that were illuminating the environment. And so it would be, this kind of image is not the sort of thing you would have seen in photography that much at that time, because you have this green kind of fluorescent light, the kind of incandescent light from up here, the kind of neon from the sign. What it would have been, the kind of standard impetus for a photographer at that time would have been to try and correct all that color out of it. In fact, what he wanted was to really kind of embrace those different colors of light.
The concept of this particular series of works is that I was trying to create what would be a kind of a very contemporary form of history painting, in which a painting kind of would register or be a witness to our times in a very kind of formal way, but also in a thematic way of touching upon who we are, where we are, etc. So that fits in kind of well with the exhibition theme here, pictures from here. In this body of work, it's at the Crosswalk, it's called. It deals with a theme that I've been working with since around 1970, which is the image of the intersection, or the crosswalk of the intersection, in which individuals, all of us who have experienced this common experience of just standing at the crosswalk waiting to cross, and I wanted to establish this sense of identity with an experience we all know and feel, but often aren't aware of. Like we just move through the city often kind of, in our own daydreams and paying attention to the traffic and such. But I wanted to create an emblem of this experience so that in a sense the viewer to the picture could identify it, but also in its emblematic sense also creates this kind of distancing so that we think about what this does mean. Who are we as city dwellers that move through the city, and what is the city as an environment? And this is something that I've been interested in as a theme in my work, because if you look at the history of Canadian art, for instance, most of the imagery that appears in the history of Canadian art is focused on nature, on the countryside. It's a very romantic idea of what Canada is as a culture. But in fact, most of us live in the city. Not all of us, of course, but most of us live and experience the city. But there's very little imagery, emblematic imagery, that kind of witnesses what this environment is that constitutes the world that we live in here as Canadians.
Yeah, my entry into using photography was not through conventional photography. My first teacher was Fred Herzog, I think the 1 year he taught. And at that point, Fred didn't make prints. We looked at all the works just projected in an amphitheater in the one of the medical buildings at UBC. His images and ours we would look at as a projection. So it was like going into a dark room and watching a film or something.
This is a skate park, and here you're kind of showcasing other things, like how are all these pictures connected?
How are they connected? Well,
yeah.
These are this is a very sporty, kind of youthful thing, the skateboard track. I love the name, the spray painted name here, Potsy Weber. I call it, that's a Potsy Weber Memorial Skateboard Track.
Oh, very good.
The bottom pictures, they are the connective line that goes all through the work. So each one of these bottoms pictures has the first images of a First Nations reserve located around the Okanagan.
I'm going to just showcase it here. Yeah, so here is the first, here is the second, here is the third, here is the fourth, and this is the main. So
the main pictures are just things that I really responded to in the Okanagan area that I thought were representative of my visit, my time, the few days I spent there. And the bottom pictures are the first image in each of the series, of each panel, is a picture of a First Nations reserve. And then next I have a picture of a giant thing. I'm a gianthropologist, and I'm kind of known for this.
Gianthropologist.
Yeah.
I like that name.
In the 1980s, I did a series called the Pan-Canadian Gianthropological Survey, and for 10 years I went back and forth across Canada, and ultimately my work that I worked on was destroyed in a flood in 1987. Oh no! And but I did get a book out of that was called Pacific to Atlantic: Canada's Gigantic. But I'm still working on that. That's actually my retirement to kind of project. Buy books and go to see exhibitions at galleries.
Exactly.
Yeah, this could be its own separate video, but I think that is one of the most important things about the new digital world, is that people have to step away from their digital stuff and go to visit places. Like if you go to a gallery and you see the works that are on the wall, this is way different than looking anything on a screen.
Yes.
I mean, this is an experience that is missed.
Yes.
And when I was a little kid, when I was about 12 years old, I came across, in Yosemite Valley, I came across a fire circle of a guy standing there talking about photography, and he said, you know, come to my show and look at my show. And that was the first time I saw real photographs that were just beautiful, incredible photographs. Was Ansel Adams, as it turned out. You can't have that experience unless you're looking at it with your own eyes.
Exactly.
And you don't get it in a book or digital. You can see what he did, and you can have a pretty close idea of it, but you don't. There's a real difference. I think I heard you say something about listening to a record or being in a symphony. And make prints of your pictures.
Make prints of your pictures. Come down to the art gallery. It's hard to explain Henri's work unless you physically are, so you can see all around me here. Henri hangs out with Fred sometimes as well. And so if you see them walking around, they're very friendly. Okay, don't be fanboys, just like relax, stay calm, approach and say hi to the other Henri and say hi to Fred, and come down to the art gallery, see Fred's work, see Henri's work, and what can I say?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. But thank you for dressing like a true Canadian, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to my canoe, paddle away.
All right, guys, we've just finished the walking tour of the new gallery exhibition on photographers, and here I have Grant Arnold, who took us through the tour. So Grant, thank you so much for inviting us media to the event.
Well, thanks for coming. First of all, you know, in terms of photography's position in the art museum, that's changed a lot. You know, during the 70s and 80s, it wasn't very common to see photography exhibitions. People are really used to that now. That's not the way it was a few decades ago. A lot of, I mean, we do exhibitions of street photography. Fred Herzog, for example, who's in this exhibition. I did an exhibition of Harry Callahan street photography a little while ago. But photography came under a lot of critique, specifically in the 80s, I guess, to some extent with conceptual art in the 70s. And that was partly about the truthfulness of the image. I mean, there are a lot of discussions by philosophers, critics, and artists in the 80s talking about how we live in an image-saturated culture, and maybe what we need rather than more images are images that draw our attention to how they work. And that was a really important part of postmodernism in the 1980s. And so things have shifted a bit. There was certainly a moment when, in the art world, the idea of making a beautiful photograph was actually not a good thing, because you would kind of get sucked into the image and you would believe it. So for a while, and as this exhibition shows, people were deliberately making bad photographs to show something.
Well, I don't think any of these pictures are bad, but they're very interesting.
Yeah, there's the kind of anti-aesthetic at a certain point that has recurred. But there are also a lot of artists working now who make quite beautiful pictures. But it's done in such a way to, say, for example, Jeff Wall's work, where you recognize that this is a stage tableau. It's not a scene that he's come across.
Yes.
And that sort of understanding of the kind of conditions in which the image was made, but also in which the image is experienced, that's a very important consideration for a lot of artists now. So that would be one thing that might distinguish you know, a standard kind of street photography from some of the work in this exhibition. Having said that, I don't want to dismiss street photography, because it's something I'm still really interested in, and you can think of Robert Frank as a street photographer, maybe the most important photography of the 20th century.
Very good.
But partly what would run through this exhibition is work that, in one way or another, looks at, kind of emphasizes the constructed nature of the photograph. And that can be in the kind of strange shapes that Henry Robideau's prints are in.
Yes.
To, again, Jeff Wall's work. Some of them, when you look at it, you realize those people actually are standing on a stage. Or to Ian Wallace's work, in which abstract painting is interspersed with photographic images. Or someone like Sandra Semchuk, whose work is, there isn't a single image there. It's a kind of documentation of a very powerful performance and a text that deals with the experience of her husband, a First Nations man, a Cree man, who was sent to residential school.
Yeah.
So, there's a variety of ways in which that kind of emphasis on the photograph as a thing in a constructed image takes place in the exhibition.
You've used this main floor to really showcase photographers, and that I applaud the Vancouver Art Gallery to be so, I would say, forward-thinking when it comes to how photography relates to modern art.
Well, and that's partly due to the artists who work here. Again, there's artists working in Vancouver who are recognized around the world for their photo-based work. And so our program and our interest in photography is a part of reflection of that it's something that's really important to both artists and audiences here.
Yeah, and your curation is fantastic. I mean, you've really tied these pictures together. So what was kind of going through your mind when you right from concept to execution? What was going through your mind for this exhibition?
Well, again, it was partly to look at different approaches that photo-based artists have used in the city over the last 4 decades. I think it would be interesting, and I think it is interesting now that I see it up on the wall, to look at images that they've made of Vancouver. So these artists, many of them have photographed in all sorts of places, but they're based here. So as a group, it kind of creates some sort of image or narrative or story or set of stories about the city. And the other thing, I wanted to do something that would be a little bit unpredictable. It would have work by some people who've been working for a long time, but maybe aren't as widely known as some others.
Yes.
And hopefully to have those in a kind of combination that would be intriguing and would make the kind of audience, a very broad audience, even think a bit about, so how are they using photography? Because there's obviously some very sharp differences that are evident here. And so even if you don't know a lot about the history of photography, they might make you think about the way we encounter photographs, how artists use photographs, how meaning is made through photographs. Something like that, but something a bit unpredictable and hopefully something serious, but something that is not too distant, something that's still accessible.
And thank you for really showing the power of photography, not only on a social media platform, which many of us are used to, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, but really within the walls of an art gallery, that there's still value in coming to a gallery. To see this work printed large instead of just looking at it on your smartphone, both have their value, but at the same time, I think society needs galleries, society needs art galleries, and really I encourage all of you to come down, even if you're not in Vancouver, go to your local art gallery, especially those that will showcase photography as well as art, painting, sculpture. But if you're in Vancouver, or if you're coming to Vancouver, when does this exhibition end?
It ends in September.
Wow, so it's a long exhibition. Guys, I know a lot of you guys come to Vancouver to go on tours, to look at the orcas, to look at the icebergs up in Alaska, but make your way to the Vancouver Art Gallery. If you love photography, you will not only see pictures of like beautiful mountains and stuff like that, but you will also see modern photographers, their take of how they use photography as their primary means of expressing their art forms. And so thank you again, Grant, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, so I just finished the media tour of the new pictures from here at the Vancouver Art Gallery. It's not going to start in a couple days, but by the time this video comes out, the show would have been started. I have right there Lawrence from Cafe YVR as my B-roll man. Thanks to Greer and everyone, Justin, Grant, for inviting me as a YouTuber. I was the only YouTuber here, but maybe that will change in the future. But as I mentioned, guys, the Vancouver Art Gallery is quite a forward-thinking gallery, fantastic photography. I thought there would be a disconnect between what I enjoy as a photographer, modern roots level street photography, and I thought that there would be a disconnect with what we'd consider contemporary photographic art, but absolutely not. I thought maybe just Fred and Henri's work would be something that I can relate with, but Jeff Wall's work is fantastic. Ian Wallace, all the other photographers, come on down. It was fantastic to see these works in person and not just in print. And so thanks again, Vancouver Art Gallery, and I look forward to doing more events. In fact, I'm going to try to come here once a month and do something with the gallery, so and make it part of BHT Talk. So come on down. We'll talk to you soon. Happy shooting.